Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the November 26th, 2014 business meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I just want to make a comment that Chair Ludlow is out ill today, and we wish him a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'm going to ask Laurel to call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Here. Commissioner Savas.
Here.
And Vice Chair Schrader.
Here. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, colleagues.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this morning, we are actually going to start the meeting with a presentation, and I'm going to call on Ms. Butman to introduce our speakers and the video we're going to be seeing today.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we're going to have Jay Wilson and Nancy Bush from Emergency Management come up and introduce this video. They worked hard on this and doing the interviews along with our cable folks from Public and Government Affairs. So take it away.
Good morning. Today we are rolling out our video commemorating the 50th
Nancy,
anniversary.
could you speak a little closer to the microphone?
There we go. I moved it away, now I have to move it back. So today we are rolling out our video commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 1964 flood. It is important that we recognize this event not only to show the importance of personal preparedness and the importance of flood insurance, but also to honor those in our community that are survivors of the Great Flood and have a story to tell. And we do have several of those members with us today. Before I turn this over to Jay Wilson, who has worked very hard on this video, he did all of the interviews and worked with our cable channel to bring us this incredible product. I want to give an overview of the 64 flood. The 1964 flood was a major flood that took place in the Pacific Northwest in Northern California between December 18th, 1964 and January 7th, 1965, spanning the Christmas holiday. The flood was the worst flood in recorded history on nearly every major stream and river in coastal Northern California, and one of the worst to affect the Willamette River here in Oregon. The flood also impacted parts of Washington, Idaho, and Nevada. In Oregon, 17 people died as a result of the disaster, and it caused hundreds and millions of dollars of damage. I will now turn this over to Jay to take a specific look at the impacts in Clackamas County and the importance that this has had on our county history.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. We decided well over a year ago, with this 50th anniversary coming up, we wanted to take advantage of this as a way of both promoting flood safety, but to also recognize the significance of this event in the history of Clackamas County as the modern flood of record that we experienced. And so rather than pulling out reports and trying to have an official perspective, we wanted to tell personal stories and reach out to members of the public to come forward either as personal eyewitnesses or the children of these families who have photographs that they've inherited and have been a part of their family history, to represent this story from a personal perspective that we don't usually see, how this affected them in their own lives. And so we put an announcement out, and we had over 24 people who reached out to us that wanted to share, that wanted to be interviewed, to talk about this. And many of them are here today, and we're very happy that they're joining us. And so what we did is we created 2 video pieces that, for the sake of this morning, are going to be tied together. We focused on the Willamette River areas and Clackamas confluence in the communities of Oregon City, Milwaukee, Gladstone, Lake Oswego, West Lynn, and further up the Clackamas River. And then we have a second piece that's focusing on the Sandy River. And I want to just emphasize, of all the counties that were affected by this disaster, Clackamas County had the most impacts. And in Clackamas County, the area that was most impacted was the Sandy River in terms of the devastation. And it's an area that we're continuing to work on since the 2011 flood. And so we're putting these videos online starting next week as part of a greater regional emphasis on this 50th anniversary, as well as a lot of the other flood information we traditionally use for outreach. And so with that, we want to share this with everyone as the first public viewing.
Right.
Okay. I don't have sound. Just one second.
Technology, isn't it?
Technology. We'll get
No,
it.
it was me.
We'll get her going.
There we go.
There we go.
The worst floods to hit the Pacific Northwest in man's memory swept across 5 states, caused $1 billion worth of property damage, and made tens of thousands homeless. In Portland and other cities and towns in Oregon, Idaho, Washington, Nevada, and Northern California, it was the same. A sweeping panorama of destruction. An indomitable spirit is the secret ingredient that will help the Pacific Northwest rebuild on the ruins of disaster. In catastrophe, courage. In the future, optimism.
It was so amazing to see it not be a fall, but just be a flood, just a total level. Houses surrounded by water, people who've had to evacuate because of the water, outbuildings, everything being toppled over, of boats rowing down the street. But looking across the river from the Oregon City side, and then looking at the windows, second-story windows being covered with water. It was amazing. And you really, it's something that you say, wow, is this really happening? And of course it was. A lot of people lost a lot. They lost a lot of hope there. And I know that during that period of time, there were some that maybe did not fully recover, but people have a lot of heart, a lot of courage, a lot of people helped. Before it happens, everything is so normal. And then afterwards, it just is a mess. And you wonder if it can ever be pretty again.
The river's beautiful, but it's vicious. We put the foundation up to what they figured would be a 100-year high, and we figured 100 years we wouldn't be there. Well, the next year we flooded. So. Well, what happened is the Faraday Dam broke, and the Red Cross contacted us immediately and said, grab one change of clothing and get out. We called our church and said, we can't flood again, pray for us, and we went to bed, and I could hear it lapping at the door. The road went out first, so our neighbor came in a rowboat and rescued us, and I had 3 little children, and here I am in this raging river with trees going by and logs going by and pieces of houses going by, and I thought, which one would I grab if the boat should capsize? A lot of our stuff was hanging from brush, hanging on the telephone poles. Everything, even our freezer floated out of our garage, took our garage door, took our freezer. Everything just floated on down the river.
The upper Clackamas has flooded worse since 1964. The upper Willamette has flooded worse since '64. But never had we had the entire Columbian Rain Basin backed up to the point that at the crest, there was no flow at the Oregon City Shopping Center. The water was stagnant. Because the Columbia was so high, there was no place for the Willamette and the Clackamas to go. Even today, as I drive through there, I can't envision those rivers ever getting that high. But looking back on it, we can see the chain of events. What year was it? 96? We had similar conditions. Cold freeze, heavy snow, fast melt. 34.5 inches of water on the floor of the Oregon City Shopping Center. Now, when I mention that, a lot of people say, oh, 3 feet. I'd like to emphasize there's a huge difference between 34.5 inches and 3 feet. Because before we left on December 24th, we piled everything we could up on shelves 3 feet and higher. Had it gone up another 1.5 inches, it would have been tens of thousands of dollars in difference. We got out a lot of cameras, but particularly we got out film, flash bulbs we knew people would want. And we got all of that into our house on 906 Jefferson to keep that safe and dry. Wish we'd had internet at the time, but we phoned people, we put out ads that we were in business out of our living room. And that is really what saved us.
All the new buildings that they have down there along the river, it's like they don't remember the storms that wiped out West Lynn back in the olden days, or how tumultuous that river has been, and even the dams can't control all of that. We just watched as our neighbors moved out, and then, surprisingly enough, after the flood, we watched those houses sell, and people moved back in, which is I didn't understand that, and still don't, but my only comment is that I'll never buy a house by the river. I used to think how nice it would be to be able to look out, but that cured me.
That's pretty wild. Wow.
There was no power and there was nowhere to go. And we couldn't see our folks because you couldn't get across the river, and you couldn't get out for a couple of days because of the bridge that went out at Wildcat, down the Wildcat Creek.
Yeah, you were stuck up there.
And we got out, 2 days later, and we walked across a log they put across the creek and went on into into Sandy. But I can remember we went to school that day, and they let us out early because there was snow, there was rain. And the school bus got to the bridge, this side of rhododendron, and the bridge was already washed out, the banks on either side of it. So the bus stopped on Highway 26, and there was a trail through into the house, and we all got off and went around the corner, and here's my favorite state cop standing there waiting for us to come home. And we looked up, and the house that was next to us was half gone. Our house was gone along with the 4 or 5 houses that went along the Stroke Creek River. But yeah, we went around the corner, and I can remember running toward the house that wasn't there, and I can remember the state cop stopped me, grabbed me. He says, "Tinker, you can't go there." So that's how we found out. And then we found out, he said, "Your parents are across the river. You can't get there, but they're safe." So there weren't a lot. I just remember we all got off on the bus. We were all going to stay at our house, found out the house was gone, and the bus turned around and took us back down and to the grade school, and of course the bus couldn't get out. Anyway, that's my mom, and it says Kirby Vacuum. This is the house that was next to us, and this is the house actually that's still there. What happened is they built it back and kept the properties. But anyway, some people came over, they threw stuff out the front window, and one of them was this Kirby vacuum cleaner.
My father owned a small sawmill, and initially when we started hearing a lot of things rolling down the river, big rocks and things like that, and noticing the water come up, we went to Welch's school, and the school was being opened at that time.
I was 16, but I remember a lot of people being happy that they were safe during Christmas, that they were all right. There was one death recorded up there. That was Mr. Harry Ingalls, a guy by the name of Carl Newman and Tom Day were there. Both of them worked in our mill at the time, probably trying to get home down in that area, and he saw Mrs. Ingalls' hand waving in the house. And they were able to rescue Mrs. Ingalls, but then the house crashed into the creek, and Mr. Ingalls was washed away, and he was never found. When the Corps of Engineers came in, they were trying to put the river back into a channel that it had been in prior to the 1930 or 31 flood, which also took out a bridge at Brightwood. And down where the Salmon and the Sandy come together, just downstream from there, was where a big log jam happened, and there was a lot of concern about what it was going to do, where it was going to divert the river. It ricocheted from one bank to the other, and it was just like pouring hot water on sugar. It scour out underneath those trees, and then they would fall in, and then the river would go over there. And then there have been floods since then, and the river's tried to find its way back to where it was, those kinds of things. I think the work that was done by the Corps of Engineers certainly has helped the place for the last 40 years anyway. There have been a few floods since then.
And the river looked like the Colorado River going down the Grand Canyon. It had that same kind of sense of power, and there were waves that were 4 and 5 feet high and things like that, incredible sort of class 5 waves. And that was my Sandy River. But you go outside of this, everything changed. The whole area changed as a result of that. The sense of place changed completely. The sense of the river as a permanent partner, if you will, in how all of this is going to work, changed, and then became volatile. And I think I can remember at that point is that the river will have its way. It was emotionally disturbing. We saw in some of the photos, or I guess that what would have been the news coverage, is that the effects were just devastating. That this was a centennial flood. Access then and access for a long time after that was only through zigzag. From our cabin then towards Brightwood, And just about everything along that road after we turned from the Broken Bridge Lane was either gone, entirely gone, or everything had changed. A few of the houses that did survive were off their foundations. So everything that I knew and had cherished as a child and the things that I felt in these walks and things like that were just gone entirely. I think 150 cabins or something like this, or homes are gone. In my area, I believe it was around 40. Many of them, we used to walk among them, and they were covered in moss, a lot on the roofs, and they had sort of the vintage of this old place behind us. That character is hard to find as well. That's pretty much disappeared. And I do not have a drive into the cabin where I don't think about that.
There were different regulations back then, so I don't think that the Corps could just go in today and with their big equipment and reroute the river and make all the changes.
But when in later years we started to see that it was working its way back to where it had overflown, you know, I was young. I probably thought, okay, it's fixed now. I never thought about it happening again.
That river just goes wherever it wants. There's no keeping it in. It's just like all the work that they did putting the river back in, a couple years later, most of that was washed away.
Wow.
So, colleagues, we have some folks here who survived the flood, and I was watching and I recognized some of them in the film. Mr. Wilson, I heard that you were going to go to them and have them introduce themselves. And
yes, we have a microphone available to pass around if they'd like to. Please introduce who they are, and if they have any comments. They're welcome.
That's it? All right. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by this film. I lived out on River Road, exactly opposite, on the level with Merlehurst. So you know I was up higher than the river. But we could see the river, and we normally couldn't see it. Right? And we could watch all the stuff floating down. And our neighbors, oh, I forgot to tell you who I am. I'm Barbara Pope. Hi. And our neighbors filled the garage and, you know, came because the lower part of Risley Road, which was adjoining us, was underwater, so you couldn't make the big loop around anymore. So everything, the cars were, you know, parked up on the hill, and our garage was full of stuff, and our patio was full of stuff, but being indirectly, really indirectly involved, considering what you guys went through, I am absolutely amazed. I could see what was happening. But other than the fact of helping people out and filling sandbags and that kind of stuff, I wasn't really personally involved. But I certainly was surprised at the power of that river, because we walk down into the river and look at it, and to see these big pieces of buildings floating by, and as somebody said, the waves, et cetera, on that river, which was normally pretty placid at that point, made me decide to never live next to a river. So now I live in Willamette, and I can see the river, but I'm a big hill up above it, so that's good. Thank you.
Go ahead, introduce yourself. I'm the kid she saved in the boat.
She was only 2. She doesn't remember much. I'm Elizabeth Reed, and we flooded 3 more times, but I had a beautiful log house that we built, and I really hated to move. We were 50 feet from the water, and it was just a wonderful place to live. But in 96, we moved in 93, and in 96, it flooded again, and the government was through reimbursing us unless we moved the house up. So those people had to move the house up 5 feet. So, and I am on water, but I'm like 1,000 feet away. I bought a half mile of Milk Creek in Colton, and I'm safe.
My name is Milt Fox, and I'm from Brightwood area. And I think the film was great, and I think the pictures that are from Joey Smith's estate really show what took place up there. It's hard to imagine, and the force of the river, and I remember being at the Brightwood Bridge and seeing houses, almost full houses, cabins crash into it and just be splinters on the way out. So it was an amazing experience. I'd never miss it for the world, but I don't want to ever go through it again, I'll tell you that.
My name's Kathy Fox, and it was Kathy Fisher. And we lived by, probably by Marmot Road would be the closest area that came out on Highway 26. And we didn't have anything horrible happen except being completely surrounded by water from the creek behind our house and the creek across the road. And so we could get out, and we went everywhere looking at all of the damage and all of that kind of stuff. It was very interesting and very scary.
And I'm Tinker Wilson, and I grew up in Rhododendron at the confluence of the Zigzag and Still Creek River. The Still Creek, actually, we lived on a corner, and it undermined our house, took it out, and the 4 or 5 houses that were to the right, and the one that was in that picture that was left was moved back, and it's really there. But our house was one of the biggest houses right there by the river, and from what I heard, because I was in school, when it hit the bridge at Rhododendron, it actually caused the water to go to either side of the bridge, and that started some of the washout on that. So.
Hi there, I'm Sue Allen, and I'm not a survivor, but where I live in Brightwood, where I've lived since 1981, the persons I bought the house from gave me a book of photographs of the '64 flood after it. And Jay has, they're not the best photos, but Jay has used them in many ways, and also come to my property to see what it looks like now. And I am on Hackett Creek, on Barlow Trail Road, and my house and the house across the creek are basically the last houses before it goes into the Sandy River. So quite frequently I walk out the creek to the river, which I did yesterday, and it was ripping and roaring. Maybe a good sign is in all the 33 years I've lived there, I have never experienced what I've experienced this week, which is the fish going up the Hackett Creek to spawn. So that's exciting to me in this weather in spite of it.
I'm Jim Hicks, and thank you, Jay. That's really an amazing thing. I guess my connection to it is we have a cabin that my grandfather built on Hackett Creek, actually, in 1928. So that cabin has been in the family and the heart of the family for all these years. And I guess my thought about flooding in that area in general is all those people, those 40 or 50 cabins between us and Hackett Creek and the Sandy, that, and maybe this is about a little bit about what Jay's doing in terms of floods in general and you know, protecting them, all that kind of thing, is that none of those people, all those people must have had, a number of them, the same kind of connection to their cabins that I have to ours, and they're gone, absolutely gone. So there's a really strong emotional component and connection to this story.
I'm Katie Sauber, and I do live on River Street in Westland now, and I was a 27-year-old teaching here in Oregon City at the time of the flood. And so what they said about people really helping, they really did. During the flood where we live now, and there was 18 inches in our basement or our bottom floor, and then the 96 flood, it only came up to the patio, but you could take boats up and down our street. But you know, it's so far so good.
Well, I actually have a little story because my father was the mayor of Milwaukee during the flood in '64, and Max Pitt, which some of you may remember on McLaughlin Boulevard, was underwater. And of course, when you're 10 years old, it's fun. So I asked my father for some hip boots for Christmas, and by then the water had gone down. But I actually have a photo, and I'm not sure what year it is, of McLaughlin when it collapsed.
Wow.
It was 64. So I have a photo of a pickup truck that's in the bottom of where it collapsed right at Kellogg Creek there. So, it was, of course, as a mayor, it was my dad being mayor. I was mayor later. It was quite the challenge. And I remember, everybody working hard to save Max Pitt. And then, of course, in Oak Grove, where that lake is down in Forest, off of whatever that road is, that whole neighborhood was underwater, and there were lots of buildings floating down the Willamette, especially the docks. Lots of docks washed away. And in Milwaukee, there was a big log boom, because in those days there was a lot of logs out there, and those all washed away, and as well as there was a car dealership, Eastman Chrysler, and a hotel, and a bunch of places that were just totally underwater. My business is up about 25 feet from that, so my dad was down the street working on Max Pitt.
Well, Commissioner Smith, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was about in the 7th grade being from Molalla. Well, the Molalla River flooded as well, and it took out several of our larger bridges. And my memory of that is, of course, everybody talking about it, and our school bus had to be rerouted because the bridge at Meadowbrook had to be replaced. And then I got off the school bus because both my parents worked. And my babysitter lived across Mill Creek down on Union Mills Road, and we had to walk across this plank like this, and the water was running underneath you. And they said, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, and it just scared me to death. It is my memory, it's etched. But we were high on a hill and didn't have to suffer nature's indignation of being flooded and losing everything. And I think this video and this film is just wonderful for our archives. I'm hoping it'll be up on our website soon, and maybe because I have relatives who remember it well, maybe we can look at it on Thanksgiving.
Great.
Yes, it will.
Thanks.
Commissioner Savas, would you like to make a comment?
I just remember the '96 flood. And I remember we were helping pump some basements out along. I forgot the name of the street. Yeah, River Forest. Yeah, run along there. And so I remember walking down to the basement. We had all these pumps that were pumping it out. We're running hoses down there. Walking down the steps of the basement, and the outlets, the light switch, and all the outlets. The water was spraying out of there like a sprinkler. Every fixture, every outlet was just water just gushing out, just from the pressure. But yeah, it was like several days of flooding when it was high in '96. But that's my memory of the flood.
Well, I was 11 years old on the East Coast, so while you were experiencing flooding, I got to experience lots of hurricanes. Okay. And I do remember as a young child being sent home from school with the wind and the water lashing the buildings, and being sent home early. And then when the eye passed over, it was the most eerie experience. That's something that's ingrained in my head as I walked. I stepped out on the front door, and here's this big kind of hole in the sky of blue and quiet. And then it passes over and the whole thing starts again. It was really remarkable. And I did experience the '96 flood, and the house, Three Rivers Farm, used to be down by the Willamette River. And back around the turn of the century, because they had consistent flooding, it was the confluence of the Molalla and the Willamette. They actually moved the house and rebuilt it up on top of a bluff. So in the '96 flood, the river covered all of the lower acreage on the farm. It was over about 80 acres. And I remember our neighbors having to check their irrigation, because it was this tall irrigation in the air, and they were in a canoe, and they were going from place to place to check to see if the irrigation was still intact. And that was a pretty intense experience. But my sense is that your experiences in the '64 flood were far more intense than even the '96 flood. So nature has its way of reminding us to have humility. And I thought the most remarkable visual in that movie was the falls, because that's the second highest volume falls in the United States. We're second to Niagara Falls, and there was no falls. That was just a flat, raging white water. That's absolutely amazing. So, anyway, colleagues, we have been asked to have a photo taken with these folks. So should we do that? Do that now, Mary? Okay, let's do it. We'd love to have a photo with all of you.
If I may too, I would just like to recognize Ryan Garris, who's in the back of the room. He was the editor. He's from the folks from Public and Government Affairs rarely are seen by the people. They're behind the scenes, and he worked so hard on the editing too. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of who did the editing.
Well, you're more than welcome to join our photo. Yeah, if you'd like. Come on.
Guess we're joining them too.
Yeah, everyone just kind of, we're all going to squeeze up there.
I sandbagged you. Did you?
Everyone look here, eyes open.
It was remarkable. Okay.
So the next flood will be over at your house, Stephen.
There you go.
He's ways from the creek. He's ways from the river, though. That'd be a flood.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, we are now at the time of our meeting where we're going to move. Okay. Ready? Okay. We're going to move into citizen communication. I want to also thank all of you for coming today. This was really a wonderful way to kind of start Thanksgiving in a way. So we do have citizen communication. I have 2 cards this morning, and I'm just going to call both folks up at once, and Tina Olson, and then Mac Woods. I don't know where Mac is, but Tina, come on up. Oh, she's going to take it. Here we go. Well, Tina, since you made it up first, why don't you get started? Nice to see you today.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Martha Schrader, which is bringing back memories for me.
Yeah.
Okay, which it's nice to see you up there.
Thank you.
And I'm sure Chair John Ludlow is watching at home, which I feel bad for him.
Yep.
But I'm actually coming up here because it's 2 years of my life testifying with you guys, which has been a long time. And I'm coming up here to give you guys kudos because I give credit where credit is due. First and foremost, I want to thank 4 of the commissioners that have volunteered their time to do the point in time count, which Paul Savis and Martha Schrader and Jim Bernard, which everybody knows that that's very important to me because if we don't do this point in time count correctly, we cannot get VASH vouchers.
Right.
Which that's been a passion of mine, foremost. Second of all is that I watched the grant process, which 2 of the nonprofits is veterans, which one of them was particularly a favorite of mine because I did fundraising for them 2 years ago, which Commissioner Martha Schrader attended their fundraiser. It's the Sycamore Lanes, and if anybody doesn't know that, they train horses to go with PTSD veterans, and it's been proven very successful, and it's right here in Clackamas County, and it actually helps them to soothe them because they go through the horse, and the horse feels what the veteran is feeling. And if anybody has never watched it, it's amazing to watch the veteran bond with these horses. So that is a very big thing for me. But, you know, there's still more to be done, but what I see that is coming back to Clackamas County is being pro-veteran again, which is amazing to me because we're going to be, next year we'll be doing the covenant, which is a big thing to me too, because we can bring all the resources in this county together for veterans. And as we know that the soldiers are coming home with the Ebola, you know, outbreak out there, we have to keep them on minds. And please, during this Thanksgiving, thank the ones that are not back here because they don't get to come home to their families. My son, everybody knows that. Yeah. This is the first year, actually, that I get to spend Thanksgiving with him for 6 years.
Oh, I'm so pleased for you.
Yeah.
And he's a wonderful, you know, he's a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
This kid is a big fella.
He's a recruiter now.
Yeah.
Out in Beaverton. So I get very choked up about it. Very happy time for me.
Good. Tina, could you tell us what it was like? Remember when you told me the story of how he did his training and the recruiter saw him and said, "This kid never stops"?
No, it was he was training to be a Navy SEAL, and they put you through this rigorous course, and you swim 5 miles, and it was down at the YMCA down in Portland. You go in and swim 5 miles. They automatically take you out of the water. You run 20 miles on the track. And after you do the 20 miles on the track, then you go over and do 200 push-ups and set-ups. Then they put you back into the pool and swim another 5 miles. So basically, he lasted through the whole thing. The Navy SEAL goes, "Man, your son's a horse." And I'm going, I have no idea. But, you know, he believed in it. You know, he trained for it. He, bless his soul, I guess he has my, you know, my stamina, I guess, sometimes, but not to give up, because apparently everybody knows me. I never give up.
That's true.
But I just want to thank each and one of you because I couldn't do this without you guys. I really can't. And this work is very passionate to me, which I'll probably end up giving it up a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. But it takes the village to raise the child. And truly, this commission has been such a pro-veteran. And people really need to know that. And I truly appreciate it. It really is. And I don't get that very often to say, but I do. So I appreciate it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, we appreciate your advocacy. You've been a strong advocate and kept us in line, and so.
I try.
Oh, you keep me in line every day, Tina.
I try, but you know, it's like I said, I thank you from the bottom of my heart because I couldn't do this without you guys. I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't do it without you either.
I appreciate it.
And any other comments, commissioners? No. Mr. Woods, another veteran.
Clackamas County Commissioners, you're correct.
Yeah.
And my first trip to Oregon was in 1965. We come into Portland for the Rose Festival. I have pictures, thank you, I'm sorry. I have pictures that you wouldn't believe that I took myself, and I still have them at home. I could have expanded on these, the video of when we come up the river. Debris on each side of the river. As we come up from the ocean, I have pictures of that had not been removed yet. If somebody wants to see them, let me know. I'll make time to show you what you've never seen before. And that's when in 1965, was less than a year after the flood in '64. So I can educate you. But I want to talk about veterans too, and I couldn't have set the stage any better. It's about taxes.
Yeah.
I encourage each and every veteran to go to the county tax assessor's office and get a copy of what they call disabled veterans or surviving spouse property tax exemption. It started in 1965, and I'm here to tell you that the politicians, call them whatever you want to, senators, Congress and stuff, have milked the benefits that started in 1955, get it right here, 1955, January 31st, down to basically nothing. They have taken from the veterans over and over and over and continuing right up till now. The latest thing here, they're now referring to spouses or partners. They didn't have partners back in 1955. They had wives, and for a few ladies, veterans, waves, they had husbands if they were married or single. But we need to get the word out. Each and every veteran, go to your county tax assessor's office and get a copy of this. Read it and understand it, and then call your senator or congressman to say, what are you doing for the veterans? Because the only time you hear them talk about anything about veterans is when they're running for re-election. We know what just happened here in Clackamas County. One senator wouldn't even talk to me when I tried to talk to him after he spoke here in Oregon City. He took off like a scared rabbit because I wanted to talk to him about veterans. So talk to him, get their attention, and say, let's get up to bat. If you want to talk about veterans, what you've done for the veterans, do something to get it back to where it was when it started in 1965. And I could go on and on, but I'm out of time. So let me tell you, what you need to get yourself together. What if you want to do something for the veterans, do it. Don't talk about it when you're running for re-election. Thank you. Have a good day.
May I say something for a second? Because that was some inaccurate information. I know what that is because I lobbied for it. There is taxes here, and believe it or not, my husband just got 75% disabled veteran pay. So they are actually benefiting veterans right now. And probably Senator Merkley didn't answer your call. I mean, what you do, you probably approached him in a different way. But
I probably did.
Senator Merkley and Congressman Shader does so much for veterans because I know them personally and I know what they've done. So you really can't say up here politicians don't do nothing for veterans because actually this county has done a lot.
Actually, I think that's a state property tax
It
reduction.
is a state property tax. It was done through the legislature.
State legislature, not the federal government, because the federal government doesn't
can't.
collect property
So,
tax.
Oregon only.
so can we get a copy? Can I just get a copy of that? Because I would like to look it over to understand it more.
Right. If you go
more
through the
thoroughly.
ODVA
Okay.
website, it actually has it on the ODVA website. It was passed 4 years ago when the transportation bill was passed.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk to that senator about, and he
bet you
refused
did.
to hear me and wouldn't even call back.
I'm sorry.
Here, you can make a copy
I would
of it.
like, yeah, let's get a copy
Because
of
it
that.
wasn't federal, it's state.
It's state, it's only Oregon, it applies to Oregon only.
Right. So Senator
Politicians
Merkley,
don't know that.
Senator Merkley wouldn't know anything about it. It would be done through the state.
Senator Merkley either.
Well, we'll make sure everybody gets educated. And I want to thank both of you and wish you both a happy Thanksgiving.
You
I'm going
too.
to have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, me
The
too.
last one I had was in 1959 before I joined the Navy in 1960, and then after over 20 years, I'm still.
Right. But these
alive.
commissioners deserve a thank you right now for
Well, they
everything they've
need to
done.
know what they don't
They
know.
know because I remind them.
I think
wants to
folks,
thank
thank you,
so she can
thank you
read it.
both so much, but we've got to get on with the meeting, folks.
Thank you. I
Love you to
appreciate
death.
it.
Oh, now Mary left.
I love the repartee of our two veterans that are here, and thank you for your service. And it's just.
20 years, 3 trips to Vietnam. I was at the same river John Kerry's at the same time.
I know. Bless you. All right, colleagues. And Commissioner Smith, did you want to say something? I saw you lie down. I'm sorry, I'm not used to this.
Oh, I don't know
thing.
why that's on there. I'm sorry.
I did it.
All right, so.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Martha.
So we are, basically, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title. We're at that point in our meeting. And after we'll read it, I'll ask if anyone wants to make a comment.
Okay, the consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a renewal agreement with CareOregon for primary care incentive payment model incentive program. Approval of amendment to the agency service contract with Metropolitan Family Services for family reunification services. Approval of amendment to the agency service contract with Northwest Family Services for family reunification services. Approval of intergovernmental revenue contract amendment for professional services with the State of Oregon Department of Education. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement, amendment number 1, with the City of Gladstone, Gladstone Senior Center to provide social services for Clackamas County residents. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement, amendment number 1, with the City of Wilsonville, Wilsonville Community Center to provide social services for Clackamas County residents. Approval of a change order on a construction contract between the Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services and Jim Smith Excavating for the Northwest Gladstone Infrastructure Improvement Project. Can you take it?
Yes, I'll take it from here. Department of Transportation and Development, approval of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation for right-of-way services for the Pudding River Whiskey Hill Road Bridge Project. Elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. County Council, approval of intergovernmental agreements for the transfer of real property to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Clackamas County. Under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of final contract payments for professional services by North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to Snowfish Incorporated, DBA Fish Marketing. Approval of intergovernmental agreements for the transfer of real property to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Clackamas County. Under Development Agency, authorization to execute an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and Clackamas County Development Agency for the Lawnfield Conveyance Ditch Project. Approval of intergovernmental agreements for the transfer of real property to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Clackamas County. Water Environment Services, under there we have authorization to execute an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and Clackamas County Development Agency for the Lawnfield Conveyance Ditch Project, and approval of intergovernmental agreements for the transfer of real property to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District in Clackamas County.
Thank you. Do any commissioners wish to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Chair, I don't necessarily wish to remove anything. A couple weeks ago, when some of these issues came up related to the NCPRD district, I kind of expressed my concerns and really more procedural. And I thought that, as a component of that, for example, the $3.2 million asset, if you will, I thought that from the receiving side of that, that could have been more clear, and some of the other properties that could have been identified, so we really knew what the true value of all this real estate transfer was, to be consistent with other properties. I feel if we're going to assess properties when we transfer them or let them go, and that's our policy, that we ought to be consistent with that. But won't get into the minutia of that, but I'm not going to ask to pull it. I just won't be supporting the consent agenda, and don't want to ruffle any feathers, but
No worries, and note taken. I would like to ask Mr. Madcore, colleagues, if, Mr. Jim, do you want to say something first? Commissioner Smith?
I'd like to move
No,
to
go
approve.
ahead.
Oh, okay, can I just ask one question?
Yes.
Thank you. So I do notice that this is under multiple.
Are we talking about item 11?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the fact NCPRD is under, like West, it's under multiple jurisdictions. Can you just give clarity for the public to know why that is so? When you look at it, it's in more than one spot.
I'll have Assistant County Counsel Chris
Okay.
Story respond to your inquiry, Chair.
And this is, I think I know the reason, but I want to make sure that when the public sees this, they'll understand why. Why is that so?
Absolutely. Because the agreements that are contemplated involve 4 different subcomponents of the county. Clackamas County itself, where you are the governing body as the Board of County Commissioners. North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, where you are the governing body. The Development Agency, where you are the governing body. And Clackamas County Service District Number 1, where you are the governing body. To make clear to each party and to you as you're part of your fiduciary duties, we separated out so there would be 4 separate votes on the consent agenda so that you would be approving it separately for each entity that's participating in the contemplated agreements.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. So do we have a motion?
I'll move we vote for the consent agenda. Approve it. Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
nay.
Vice Chair Schrader?
Okay, aye, it is approved. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner, for giving us a heads up and expressing your opinion. It's important to get more than one viewpoint. All righty, Laurel, we have the county administrator update.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just have a few items up on the screen. We'll be showing a list of Thanksgiving dinners that are available free to the public and are also places where people might want to volunteer. So if anyone knows of anyone in need, they're in English and in Spanish. And if anyone wants to volunteer, you can find out more with these organizations, or if you want information today, you can call our number at 503-655-8581. Also, as that's playing there so people can read it, I wanted to recognize that earlier this month, 3 county employees, Kendra Doobie, Rosa Murillo, and Trina Taylor from Clackamas Behavioral Health Centers were awarded the state's Rehabilitation Council's Vocational Rehabilitation Award for their consistent and outstanding contribution as a vocational rehabilitation partner.
Nice.
Yeah, I was looking at the nomination, and it noted that these employees are client-centered and a highly creative team, and they deliver outstanding results in providing employment services. They provide career development, job preparation, job search, job coaching, and long-term support for clients living with serious and persistent mental illness. So congratulations to our employees.
That's great. That's wonderful news. All right, so folks, now it's time for us to have communication, commissioner communication, and I'm not going to start first, but I do want to let you know I think I'm going to say a few words about what I'm thankful for. So hopefully, you might think about that, Commissioner Bernard.
Last week we were out because we were at the AOC conference. That's the Association of Oregon Counties in Eugene. It was a great meeting. We had a lot of great subjects. I'm the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee, and we talked a little bit about the new marijuana rules, or the discussion about what could be some of the new marijuana rules and our ability to regulate the location. And so we're going to be talking in the future about time, place, and manner. I'm very concerned that since the legislation passed, that of places like McLaughlin Boulevard and 82nd Avenue could be just a place full of facilities like that. And I've been around my whole life here, and 82nd Boulevard at one time was a pretty scary place. And I hate to see McLaughlin 82nd go back to the way they used to be. So I look forward to those discussions. I have a lot to be thankful for. I'm now a rancher, and I'm enjoying the hard work of living in unincorporated Clackamas County outside of Canby, and I look forward to being as lucky as Mr. Madcore over there, who also is a rancher, and being able to produce something on my ranch. And also, I appreciate working with you guys, and I think we've got a lot of great things ahead of us, and a lot of challenging discussions, and I hope that we'll remember that we're constantly working for what we think is best for the public, even though we may think that how you get there is different. But we all care very much about what happens to the county. And I'm also very thankful, every month we do a recognition lunch with the employees, and I'm always amazed about, how much they love their jobs, appreciate the work they do with the citizens, and, just that they're just fantastic people to work with. Not a one of them would I just appreciate every one of them so much. That and some on our floor too are great. I look forward every morning to coming in and saying, "Hi, Mary," and by the way, you weren't there a couple of times in making coffee. Yeah. But and also to John Ludlow, who's out ill, and I wish you the best and hope that you'll be able to enjoy Thanksgiving. And look forward to your return.
Great. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Martha. Well, I have a lot to be thankful for. Number one, my family. has always been near and dear to my heart. We have a different tradition. My 80-year-old mother decided to retire from cooking Thanksgiving dinner. So my daughter and my sister's son decided to cook it. And so it skipped a generation. And we really look forward to that, and we are offering our tips on how to do it like my mom did it, and the kids are saying, we got it covered, Mom. We know what we're doing. Says, okay. So that's really different and fun for us. And I don't know. Anyway, I'm very thankful for the staff here at Clackamas County who's always trying to keep me on the right track and making me look good. I appreciate that very much because as commissioners, we deal with lots and lots of issues where we think we have to be experts at, and we rarely are an expert at anything. Maybe we're more generalists and try to do what's best for the county, given the information that we have to work with. And I'm very thankful for the people who help us down that track.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm thankful, really, frankly, for the opportunity really to serve in this capacity. I mean, it really is truly an honor, and it's also challenging because I think it's been expressed here. We all take this very seriously. We all care. We're all passionate. And sometimes we agree on what we want to do. We just sometimes maybe disagree on how we get there. Sometimes it's about the how. I want to thank, and I try to be one of those people, especially when, yesterday's little luncheon yesterday, there's been, due to some of the comments that have been made as we go through, whether it's the Area Commission on Transportation, and whether it's about the Climate Smart Initiative, whether it's about the congestion we face and poverty. But I really appreciate the media kind of covering some of that. And I know that when some quotes are taken from some of us, sometimes they're a little bit strong and they're received as maybe coming from or being the consensus of the board or from the board. And that creates a little bit of hostility, unfortunately. But, it's part of the business we're in the sense of it's a political environment. But I think we have to really respect the system, respect one another jurisdiction-wise, and just try to help educate, whether it's this particular agency or another jurisdiction, and basically yesterday was about Metro to some degree. But we, as the providers, try to help people out, whether it's our social safety net, it's transportation and congestion, it's jobs. We have these responsibilities that they don't particularly necessarily have to face on a daily basis like we do. And I think it's really important that we convey that as convincingly and respectfully as possible and not realize that we're trying to create, a war or a battle amongst one jurisdiction or another, but recognize our challenges. I appreciate the media coverage, especially last week in Pamplin Media. The front page of the Clackamas Review covered two very important things to Clackamas County. One is the fall into poverty that we're facing, and our transportation challenges with regard to congestion and the climate smart and the greenhouse gas issue. And, those are very delicate, complicated issues, and it's very hard sometimes to make comments constructively when they're extremely complex. But I want to just thank the coverage for that, and I thought it was nice of them to put those articles in the front page because they really are important. And that's just a taste of some of the things we face. But I want to wish everyone out there a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone will enjoy their Thanksgiving with their friends and family as much as possible. And to my colleagues, I wish them a great Thanksgiving as well.
Thank you. Well, I'll try and be brief, but I'm thankful for the people that we work with. I'm thankful for staff. I'm thankful for the folks that keep this county running. I'm thankful to all the folks that are fixing turkey dinners tomorrow, for folks that maybe need a place to go for turkey dinners. I've got a 17.5-pound turkey in my fridge as we speak. But if I was to really say what I'm thankful for, I'm very thankful that my daughter is okay, because I did have to leave unexpectedly for a medical crisis that she was having. She's pregnant with a little girl, and I'm happy to say that so far, so good. I talked to her this morning, and things seem to be going the way they're supposed to be going after a very big scare. And I want to thank the staff for making me look good and keeping me in the loop on the phone. And I want to thank my colleagues for allowing me to attend meetings on the phone, because I know it's hard for the chair. I think we got our rhythm down a little bit better in terms of me just not jumping in, with a baby in the background. So I am very grateful for that, and I'm grateful for my friends and my family and my boys and my girls. And our new little girl, her middle name is definitely, we don't know what the first name is yet, but the middle name will be Hope, because of the hopefulness that things were going to be okay. So keep us in your prayers. And also, I don't want to belabor this point, but there is a lot of sorrow in our nation right now. And I just, for a number of reasons, so let's keep all those folks who are suffering because of recent incidents in our prayers, and let's not try and judge one another because it's a very, very hard, difficult, sorrowful time, but I think that hopefully we will get through this and learn lessons from it. So thank you. All right, folks, I think this is the end. We're adjourned.